Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Draft Room. This is the NFL Draft Podcast of the Packernet Podcast Network. There is a phone number if you'd like to call in. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, favorite, least favorite, prospects, specs, etc., 608-561-3243 is the number to call. More pro day news to go through. However, I don't think we can have an NFL draft podcast without talking about this really weird Dan Orlovsky nonsense that's going on right now. So let me start at least with this. It has been long assumed that many people in the media are at least to some degree up for sale when it comes to certain takes. So, for example, the way that this works is obviously where a guy gets drafted is massive. If you are an agent and you represent somebody and somebody gets drafted, 10 overall compared to 50 overall, your cut of that, as well as your reputation along with representing people, takes a massive hit. Whether they're a first-round pick compared to a second-round pick is obviously massive. And so as an agent, it's basic due diligence to try to work with these media members to get them to pump up your prospect. Right? So I guess what I'm saying is I'm laying out a conspiracy theory and explaining why it's really the path of least resistance. It's not an extreme thing. And from the standpoint of why would a media member do this? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, potentially, and I'm not saying this is direct, but potentially money. Secondarily, though, relationships. You want to be the guy that breaks the news. You want to get the insights. You want to be able to pick up the phone, call an agent, and say, what's the status of X, Y, and Z? And they're supposed to answer you why. What's in it for me? Quid pro quo. Why do I get to pump you full of information so that you get to go on your TV show and talk about how insightful you are, and I'm hearing from this person or that person? Why would I give you that information unless you're willing to work with me? So it becomes kind of a Godfather thing. The whole, the day in the future, and that day may never come, I will ask you one favor, and that favor you cannot refuse. One of the people that is expected, there's no proof, there's no smoking gun, but there seems to be a lot of suspicion and evidence. Again, not proof, but evidence, a pile of whatabouts or whatever that don't directly connect anything, but it's suspicious, tying Mel Kiper to these types of things. In large part because there seems to be a lot of times where he will stake his reputation on the most random thing and will swear up and down that not only he, but everybody knows that this is actually a really good prospect, blah, 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 blah. And it begins to feel more like a campaign than an NFL analyst doing analysis. Let me go down this rabbit hole for just a second, just on Mel Kiper, and then we'll circle back just to kind of round out this picture. Couple things. 2010 Sports Illustrated scandal. Former NFL agent Josh Lukes, if that's how you say his name, in his big Sports Illustrated Confessions of an Agent expose, directly implicated Kiper in shady recruitment tactics involving super agent Gary Wichard or Wickard or whatever. Lukes claimed Wickard would call Kiper while meeting with a prospect and put him on speakerphone so Kiper would hype the player's draft stock in real time, making the kid think ESPN's draft guru loves me and signed with Wickard. In 2000, Wickard allegedly did this with Stanford defensive lineman Willie Howard. Lux also said people in the agent world believe Kiper consistently ranked Wickard's clients too high on his boards. A big flashpoint was Jimmy Clausen in 2010. It wasn't just gossip, it led to public accusations that Kiper was essentially a shill for Wickard, helping agents boost clients' draft positions and thus signing bonuses and earnings. Kiper flat out denied any wrongdoing, obviously. Some of the later accusations. In 2018, former first-round pick Lawrence Jackson, ex-USC defensive end, went on record claiming Mel Kiper has greased pockets. That's why the big board always has some what names on it. I had an agent promise to get me atop his board. This got picked up by blogs and draft Twitter, reviving the old Wickard story, Witchard story, whatever. Anytime Kuiper has a controversial ranking, especially if it helps a player with a connected agent, critics trot out the bought by agents line on Reddit, X, etc. So the point of this isn't really to say Mel Kiper directly has anything to do with this specific situation. It's to say that agents understandably try to use the media. Teams, by the way, do this also. We know this, that they will pump out some kind of fake information, but this is slightly different. This isn't really just pumping out fake information. This is, hey, I need you to kind of pump up this particular player. I need you to help me to get my guy X, Y, and Z. Okay? So that, I'm not going to say 100%, but I think we know, let me put it this way. It would be more unlikely that it doesn't happen than unlikely that it does happen. It's the thing in my mind that makes the most sense. You're telling me we're talking multi-million-dollar contracts. You're telling me nobody is trying to get people to pump up their players? Now, step 2. Which prospect would make the most sense in terms of trying to pump them up? You could go in a lot of different directions here, but Ty Simpson makes a massive amount of sense. He is a guy that is very much being pushed out of the first round by a lot of people. His agent stands to make or lose a ton of money based on where Ty Simpson gets drafted. Now, one thing I want to get out in front of is it seems to me that one main objection here would be who cares what the media is telling the public? That has nothing to do with what teams are going to do. That's not necessarily true. Teams are not infallible. Teams spend a lot of time on fact-finding missions just like the media. They're going out trying to talk to sources and figure out what people are saying to figure out what other teams are doing so they can figure out when and where and how and all this other stuff. The point is, if you like Ty Simpson and you have to decide whether or not we need to trade up for him, we need to trade back into the first round, maybe I need to trade back and take him in the first round or take him here because he won't be available in the second. Little things like that can make a big difference. If you think he falls to the mid-second round or something, compared to if you think he goes mid-first round, that absolutely, if you're a quarterback-needy team, changes how you address the situation. It's also not impossible. You'd like to think better of scouts and front office people and whatnot. It's not impossible that groupthink impacts the way people think. And if groupthink says he's not good, he's a second-round pick, whatever, compared to if groupthink says he's actually a first-round pick, then it would make sense that you would try to inject as much, he's really good, he's better than Mendoza, you want to inject as much of that into the narrative as is humanly possible. In other words, you want to influence what the group thinks, even if you're injecting fake thoughts into the group. So, I'll tell you what, let's just do this today. Why not? Let's take a break here. We'll come back, and I want to dive into the specifics of this very weird situation that I choose to believe because it's the off season and this is fun. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So the big thing here is Dan Orlovsky. And I first of all, I like this because the tape watchers out there, and I don't mean all of them, but there seems to be this like data versus tape watcher thing, and I fall on the data side, so it's whatever. I absolutely understand the value of watching tape and all that, and whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, they can be a little condescending sometimes, and I love it when you have these who shall not be questioned, by the way, former football players, former quarterbacks. How could I possibly know when if a former quarterback says so, then obviously I think they would know, duh. Well, that's interesting because I'm watching former quarterbacks say things that other former quarterbacks are saying is stupid. They can't seem to agree on anything. So if they know, why don't they agree? If they don't agree, sounds to me like they don't know. There should be unanimous consensus across the board because they're all watching the same tape. They all know how football works. They all understand the plays that are going out there. They understand the most important attributes, the most important traits. They understand everything from top to bottom. How do they not agree? It's kind of odd, isn't it? Sounds like the tape watchers are not infallible, and that watch the tape isn't just a catch-all that some people think it is. By the way, the most obnoxious quote-unquote tape watchers, this is why I don't like going too hard at tape watchers. Most tape watchers are cool. The most obnoxious tape watchers are guys that don't actually watch tape. They just like to say, watch the tape, to dismiss the stats guys. They're obnoxious jagoffs that have never watched tape in their life. They watch football games, and they casually watch it, not all 22, on their couch on Sunday, and that's it. And they pretend they watch all 32 teams, by the way, even though they watch maybe 1, 2, 3 games in a week. Whatever. They're freaking stupid. Anywho, the main tie-in here, and it's not necessarily necessary, but it's entirely possible that, I mean, at the very least, it's a good jumping off point. Ty Simpson and Dan Orlovsky are both repped by the same agency known as CAA. It also just so happens, by the way, it has been consensus basically since day one that Fernando Mendoza is the number one guy. Ty Simpson is he's whatever. He's maybe a first-round pick, maybe not. Dan Orlovsky, and by the way, I look, I'm playing both sides of this because I don't really care, and it's just fun drama stuff. I will say I like when people break from the norm. I like these types of takes. But I also, again, I'm all here for the drama, and so I will choose to buy into this conspiracy nonsense. Orlovsky kind of started this whole thing on the television show. I think it was Hot Take. Or no, excuse me, on ESPN's Get Up around March 24th. Orlovsky dropped the bomb, quote unquote, I think Ty Simpson is QB1, and it's not close. Now, again, ordinarily, that's just one of those like, okay, I guess whatever, but it is a little weird. It is a little bit of a stretch. It's kind of coming at a little bit of a weird time, just out of nowhere. It's a very forceful statement. You know, it's not like I understand or I really respect Mendoza and all that, and he's a good quarterback, but I'm not sure Ty Simpson isn't better. He said Ty Simpson is QB1 and it's not close. He has since doubled down multiple times. His core argument, Simpson's tape is superior. Of course that's his argument because he's a tape guy and that's all that there is. Interestingly, so is everybody else and they don't agree, which is weird because the tape should tell you what you need to know. Anyways, better processing, fast eyes, more NFL throws, quicker reset ability. Simpson was asked to, quote-unquote, do more things and carry his team more than Mendoza was. Simpson is more consistent and poised under pressure. And then one of the bigger, more interesting things that really kind of set things off, and I think could be a freaking nail in the coffin here, he claims he texted 12 to 15 NFL GMs / decision makers. And they are saying Simpson is the best quarterback. Only 2 disagreed. Okay, this is a massive claim and is really freaking weird because there's only a handful of guys. If you would have said I talked to 12 or 15 people or 12 or 15 scouts, there's 1,000 scouts or 100, several hundred, whatever. I don't know. What are there? A couple dozen or a dozen per team? And as we'll go through, when we go through, the first one is out, by the way, part 1, Bob McGinn doing his thing, position by position, going through the scouts. What we'll learn is scouts don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're all over the place. They're freaking weird, okay? Everybody is either the greatest in the world or a piece of crap, and they're kind of stupid. I like the Bob McGinn series, but it's unfortunate because it made me lose a lot of respect for scouts because it just shows they don't know what they're doing either. It's just like this situation. How are you all scouts who are like really, really good at your job and you've got first round prospects and you've got guys saying he shouldn't go in the first 3 rounds? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that scouts are saying. And maybe they're right, but it's like, shouldn't you all agree? Don't you all, or at least close to agree? You're doing the same thing. You're watching the tape. You're shaking the same hands. How do you come to such different disagreements? But anywho, he didn't talk to those people. He didn't even keep it vague and just say, I talked to 12 to 15 people. He specifically said 12 to 15 GMs/decision makers. And by the way, the only distinction here would be that if a team has sort of a structure in which the GM either splits decisions, it could be an owner, it could be a vice president, they got some weird thing or whatever. But we're talking roughly, let's call it 40. Let's say there are 40 of these people and everybody knows who they are, and a lot of people in the media have those exact same contacts. You've spoken to, what, a third? You've spoken to 1/3 of all of those people, and all but 2? So, I mean, to be the most generous, he said 12 to 15. Let's say it's 12 and 2 disagree. You're saying that's 10. That is 1/4. 1/4. And again, I'm being very generous. This might be, 13 of 32, but I'm going to say 10 of 40. You're telling me 10 of 40 all said that Ty Montgomery, let's specifically, he says 12 to 15 NFL GMs, decision makers, saying Simpson is the best quarterback, only 2 disagreed. You know how easy it is to dismiss that if you're in those circles? Do you understand how easy that is? You can pick up the phone and talk to those people and determine whether or not that's true. It's crazy to make that claim. Now, for the sake of argument right now, let's say it's true. Holy crap, that's crazy. So what do we know so far? Dan Orlovsky is represented by this CAA, which also represents Ty Simpson. We have to assume Ty Simpson's agency of CAA is looking for individuals that may be receptive to pushing out a narrative that he is actually one of the top quarterbacks, possibly the top, possibly even, let's see how crazy we can get him to go. Hey, maybe let's sweeten the pot. Why don't you say that you've talked to your sources and they say X, Y, and Z? These are the kinds of things they're probably trying to find people to say. In other words, let me refine that even more. People representing Ty Simpson want to find people in the media that are willing to say exactly what Dan Orlovsky said. Whether or not they were able to find them, I don't know, but it's safe to say that they were trying to do exactly that. It's also interesting because I said the timing on this is a little bit odd. Orlovsky's agent is Matt Olson of CAA. Simpson signed with them around the Combine, meaning this hasn't been a long time coming. They just signed in like a month ago. Not December, not the 1st of January. This hasn't been like a long time thing. We're talking February. So remember what some of the allegations were? Some of the allegations about Mel Kiper were that the way that they could entice you to join their agency is to say, I can get these media members to lie for you. So they sign, and a month later, somebody from within that agency goes out and says that Ty Simpson is actually QB1 and it's not close. And not only that, 1/2 to 1/4 of the NFL decision makers. And not only that, but 10 of 12, potentially 13 of 15 have all said, meaning if I were to talk to all 32, all 40, whatever, it's probably like 28 of 32-ish, at least 25 of 32 probably all agree. That is a wild statement that came out of nowhere shortly after he joined this agency. Orlovsky's response was, these agents work for us, not the other way around. I'm not nearly important enough to CAA financially for them to pay me to say something about a guy who might be the 20th pick. He insists it's purely film-based with no ulterior motives. Right. Let me push back just slightly. The agents work for us. Correct. The agents work for Ty Simpson. Correct? Would it make sense that the agent would try to do what's in the best interest of Ty Simpson? And is what you're saying in the best interest of Ty Simpson? I think it is. The only question is, how do they talk to you and get you to do these types of things? Things since then have absolutely spiraled. So he comes out, he makes a take. People start putting things together. I saw Walter Cherepinski immediately start to point out all the different CAA people that are pushing this stuff. In fact, let me go to his Twitter real quick. Yeah, the other guy is Mike Tannenbaum. Mike Tannenbaum, former Jets-Bills GM, who's now an ESPN NFL Network analyst. Right after Dan Orlovsky dropped the Ty Simpson is QB1 and it's not close bomb on Get Up, Tannenbaum jumped on X and basically co-signed it hard. He posted that he's heard from multiple NFL teams and decision makers who are internally making the exact same assessment as Orlovsky. So, interestingly enough, it's kind of the same claim, right? He's saying the same things. I've talked to people that are decision makers that believe that Ty Simpson is the top quarterback. It's the same claim. He's been repeating that teams are higher on Simpson than the public consensus. And surprise, surprise, Tannenbaum is also represented by CAA. So another guy in the same agency comes out at the exact same time, says the exact same thing about the exact same guy. Now, up to this point, it's entirely possible that this is just true. You have two insiders. Yes, they're represented by the same agency, but these are two insiders that absolutely have contacts. One of them is a former GM, so he probably has GM contacts. They both probably do. And they're talking to people, and they're saying that the internal consensus is much higher than what the public is saying. And again, remember, let's keep in mind, this is not a broad tent. This is a very small group of people at the top, okay? Let's start with Tannenbaum here. Here's a little clip that I'd like to play. Okay? And this is where it gets fun. This is on Get Up. Here we go.
Looking at late first round as far as young fielding is concerned. Now, for anyone, look, Dan got a lot of attention for what he said yesterday, and certainly a lot of strong disagreement saying he believes that Ty Simpson is actually the best quarterback in this class. But I want to show you a tweet that Mike Tannenbaum had. He reposted our clip of that, and he wrote on top of it, in talking to clubs, this opinion is shared by other teams as well. So, Mel, as you assess Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, how big a gap do you see between the top two quarterbacks in this class?
Yeah, that's not shared by anybody I've spoken to. Fernando Mendoza's at 1 on my board. Ty Simpson's at 25. You say, why? Fernando Mendoza's nearly 4 inches taller than Ty Simpson.
That's where the clip ends. Nobody cares what you think, Mel. The interesting part about that is that Mel Kiper, who obviously, just like a lot of these guys, is very plugged in, said that is not shared by anybody that I've spoken to. How is it possible that two guys have spoken to people at the top and believe that there is a near consensus that Ty Simpson is the top quarterback? Mel Kiper is saying he has spoken to a bunch of people and nobody, he said it's not shared by anybody I have spoken to. So you're telling me that, some 75, 80% of front office people that they've spoken to believe that he's the top guy, and Mel Kiper is at 0% believe that? Do you know what the odds are of that? Almost zero. So that was March 24th. We're talking like the same day. So Orlovsky comes out and says it. Tannenbaum runs to social media and says, yep, he's right. And then they rush out there. Mel Kiper's like, I don't know, man. That's not one single person I've talked to has said that. Then you got this, which was what really blew this up. So Orlovsky's back is already against the wall. All right? His back is already against the wall on this whole thing. He's already starting to feel the heat. He's already very uncomfortable. He's getting a little grumpy. We get this gem.
We boots on the ground saw Fernando through the biggest games, and it's just like everything about him just screams.
What biggest games, Pat?
Huh?
What biggest games?
The college football playoffs.
Now you're playing possum.
No, you're right. Those SEC games are bigger than the f***ing playoff games, Dan.
Am I allowed to ask questions and have an opinion as well?
They played each other.
Am I allowed to ask questions? I want to publicly execute people that say that, okay? Can I just say that out loud? Anybody that says I'm just asking questions, I'd stop saying that stupid bull crap. You're not, I hate that he's falling into that now. Oh, I'm not allowed to ask questions? I'm just asking questions. I know that you asked a question, stupid. We're past that point. We're engaging in that question now and how stupid it is. Why even bring up the point that you're asking a question? You think I don't know that you just asked a question? What a stupid comment.
Head-to-head.
Okay, actually. Dan, do you just have so the college football playoffs a big mockery, a scam, doesn't mean anything.
By the way, Pat McAfee, very rarely seen him this angry. Like at the level of stupidity that was just thrown out. Like he's calling Pat McAfee stupid for saying that Fernando Mendoza played in big games when it is very obvious he has played in very big games.
Games just don't matter. Like, what do you mean? What are the biggest games? They have a full committee. They have billions of dollars in TV rights for what the biggest games are.
Okay, and so no, I'm aware of that, dude. Like you guys, okay. So in the biggest games, so the college football playoffs started, and they played opening.
Well, you can start at the Big Ten championship, I guess. You can say Big Ten.
Okay, Big Ten championship. Okay, Big Ten championship. In that game, they're down 13-6 going into the fourth quarter. Indiana.
And then what?
Boom.
So do they win the game?
And then what, brother?
Yes. But
we're talking about all the moments. You're talking about traits. It's like, okay, how about 2nd and 17?
6 points through the first 3 quarters. People.
Ohio State's defense is a historic defense. Like, what are we even talking about?
People crucified Arch Manning for doing that on the road.
Crucified Arch Manning. Arch Manning's not a part of this conversation.
Well, if you go by that too, like Indiana beat Alabama, 38-0? I mean, it's
Okay. So we're just picking and choosing.
No.
Literally what he's doing. He's coming up with the dumbest arguments that no professional analyst would ever bring up. You're telling me that the fact that you didn't score a lot of games against an elite defense is disqualifying? And then he goes on to say, well, people crucified Arch Manning. So what? Why are you doing it? It's not about what other people are doing. Do you think Arch Manning is bad? Why are you bringing that up? Do you think it's a good point or a stupid point? If it's a good point, then you also mean Arch Manning is bad. That's what you believe. If you don't believe that, then you do think that this is stupid. So why are you bringing it up to actually try to dismiss Fernando Mendoza? Do you understand how this makes no sense? He doesn't even believe what he's saying. It's very obvious he doesn't believe what he's saying. And he's scrambling to come up with any amount of nonsense that he can come up with to try to crucify or bring up the point that Mendoza is not actually that good. And he's doing it because his back is against the wall. He made a claim and people are coming out, especially because they're talking about this connection, and he's like a freaking cornered animal right now. He's flailing and lashing out at people.
No. You
Yeah. And this is why people say you're getting paid to do this.
Oh, that is the best. So Pat McAfee so at this point the gloves are off, like this whole like we're buddies and like, it's a pretty casual, fun environment. At this point the gloves are officially off. And you could tell when like Orlovsky starts calling him dude and stuff, like this is not a normal conversation. Like this is an actual legit argument. And so now Pat McAfee is pointing out all the holes and all the stupid things and how nothing he's saying is making sense. And then he just drops the hammer and says, yeah, this is why people think you're getting paid for this.
You know what I mean, Dan?
No, because I'm giving you factual information, not opinion. They had 6 points through the first 3 quarters in the Big Ten.
So what? Is that the sum total of the parts of your analysis of a player? So if I can go back and find any time when a player had a bad game, professional, college, anything, and by the way, not even a bad game. He's not even saying as a film watcher that he had a bad game. He's saying the team had X amount of points against an elite defense. Therefore, what? What does that mean? Is this really your level of analysis? And then he says, I'm giving you facts. I'm just giving you facts. This is, I'm telling you, this is conspiracy theory language. I'm just asking questions. I'm just giving you facts. Yes, you're laying out pieces of information. You're not telling me how this ties into a holistic view of a player. You're not even, and you're not even willing to apply this same metric to other people. So again, this is 1000% conspiracy theory language and thinking. I'm just asking questions. I'm just laying out facts. I'm just kind of like throwing things out there. Like, you can't crucify me for that. You're full of crap right now.
Entitled
against Ohio State. Look up who their defense is. Look up what that defense. That's like one of the greatest defenses in the history of football.
But you didn't.
And what did he do?
Defense.
Then what did he do, Dan?
The biggest moment.
And what did he do, Dan?
The biggest quarter.
Charlie Becker.
He threw I think he threw the post to start the second half, which is a great throw and a great recognition.
And a huge moment after getting beat, so mental toughness is there. And then obviously being able to take a shot. He cracked his rib on the first play. I mean, there's just like, because then you're going to hold injuries on the other side. Right now.
He's Orlovsky is so upset. He's got his head down.
It's like, well, how about first play, a Big Ten championship guy gets this and then takes 2 plays off. Wow, I just got cracked. No pause, he said on our show. And then he jogs back out there. It's like, is that not a trait? I don't know. You tell me.
Of course it's a trait. No one's questioning if he's a tough guy or a good player.
No one's questioning. I mean, this is such classic gaslighting, conspiracy nonsense talk. This is like, I'm trying to represent a belief that is not true. I don't have the facts, probably don't even believe it type of language. But that was when this thing really exploded. It was kind of like behind the scenes. This really blew it up when Pat McAfee just stomped him right on the throat. Then, still same day, March 24th, Dan Orlovsky, who is getting absolutely eviscerated from the second he came out and did this, and now then he starts getting called a shill because he works for the same agency. Then he goes on Pat McAfee. They try to have a conversation about Mendoza. To be honest, this is probably a softball lob from Pat McAfee. I mean, you could say it was a dig at him or whatever. This is a softball lob for him to come out and be like, heck yeah, man, that was a great play. I think he's a great player. People are blowing this whole thing out of proportion. He comes in and opens with, what big games? What big which by the way, is a meme right now. What big games? They're talking, like what big games for Tom Brady, all that kind of stuff. So he's getting just crucified across the internet. He posts a picture. Presumably this is him. He's out going to get a coffee or something, trying to get some fresh air, and he sees what looks like a 4-year-old colored this, just scribbled on it. But it's a sign that says, people often forget that kindness is free. And he posts that as a way of saying, be nice to me. Stop teasing me. Like this came out of nowhere. Like he just wanted to send out a good message for the world to help the world. But no, he's saying, please stop making fun of me. Which of course just made everything worse, which he is mastering the art of making this worse. Because the comments are just crucifying him. Matt Leinart says, we've all been there, dude. Take the L and get better tomorrow. Well, then the next day, he's being given an opportunity to fix this, which is what everybody assumes. Okay, you go out, you take the L, right? Well, I'm not going to play it. It's like 2.5 minutes, but it's him basically saying, I never said he was a bad player. I didn't. But the funny thing is, it takes him about 5 seconds before he starts crapping on Mendoza again. This is his opportunity, right? You walk it back, you walk away. And that's it, right? Just walk it back and walk away. That's all you have to do. He says, I've never said he was a bad player. However, here's what I said, and here's the reasons why he's not that good. By the way, what's really interesting about this, I'm trying to get the timeline down here, but so he comes out and says that such and such and so is actually the top quarterback. Ty Simpson is top quarterback, okay? Then he goes on Pat McAfee. He's getting crucified. He triples down, double, triple, quadruples down. He all the way in. His conversation about 12 to 15 GMs comes out on Pat McAfee, which is interesting because he's in like, my back is against the wall. I have to do something crazy to get out of this. This is during Pat McAfee.
I can tell you, and I'm not going to tell you who, but I probably texted 12 to 15 general manager, decision-making coaches in the NFL, the very simple text of Ty Simpson is QB1 in this class, or the best quarterback in this class, and 2 people got back to me with a disagreement.
Okay.
And the rest didn't respond?
And the rest had quarterbacks? Yeah. So was it a thumbs up from the people, or was it, like, what was the response?
Yeah.
Atta baby Dan-O! Like, what was it a positive?
Shh, don't tell them.
Yeah, it was some form of, like, agree.
Some form of agree.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily I
Any good
agree.
gif?
Sometimes it was a thumbs up. Sometimes it was a gif of, like, yes.
You nailed it.
sometimes-
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that so?
So they're all, first of all, they're already making fun of him that, so, okay, again, real quick, timeline. He puts this terrible take out there. He's getting crucified. So now he wants to do what? He wants to get some backup. So he goes out, and by the way, this is probably more true than the whole conspiracy theory thing, but it doesn't matter. Whether the CAA thing is related or not. And then he goes out and he's like, I need backup. So he doesn't ask 12 to 15 GMs and say, hey, who's the best quarterback? He texts and says he is the best quarterback. And then he got 2 people that disagreed, and the rest, he even flat out says some of them it was a thumbs up. So he takes that as an agreement. Some of them were a GIF. In other words, they're brushing him off like, cool, bro. Anyways, I got work to do. But again, you got Tannenbaum, who came in after this and agreed and said, oh, yeah, I've also talked to them. And they said the same thing. I talked to a bunch of people. They said that. Well, here's the final piece, okay? This is You Better You Bet, whatever that is, some kind of a show. I'm just going to play it.
Mendoza, DJ, you're obviously as plugged in as it gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can talk to different people, but I have not talked to anyone that has that. So, and that's not saying that he's saying anything untrue. He just is talking to different folks, apparently, than the folks that I've been talking to.
So that's two people. Daniel Jeremiah, who is probably, if you had to pick like one guy that is at the top of this thing, the most trustworthy, the most plugged in, the most reliable. It's not Mel Kiper. It's none of these people. I would probably take Daniel Jeremiah above everybody else, certainly above Orlovsky. He is flat out saying, I have not talked to one person that agrees with that. Mel Kiper says, I have not talked to one person. Zero people that I have talked to believe that Ty Simpson is the top quarterback in this class. Zero. At this point, I don't know that there's any, regardless of the CAA thing, there is no question that you have been caught in a lie at this point. There is no question that you said, and he might be right, by the way. Ty Simpson, I'm not making any kind of a judgment here whatsoever in terms of who is actually better. What I'm saying is he came out and said something crazy. And then rather than just standing on it and being like, whatever, dude, I got my own opinion. That's my opinion. It is what it is. He decides to go out and get into fights with people. He decides to bring up fake nonsense arguments and stats that don't even make any sense whatsoever. It's complete, again, gaslighting, conspiracy, garbage talk. He's been called on it numerous times. He decides to back himself into a further corner by saying he talked to 12 to 15 different decision makers and only 2 disagreed with him. And now he's got Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper flat out coming out saying that's not true. I mean, they're not really saying that, but let's be honest, that's exactly what they're saying. I haven't talked to one person between Kiper and Jeremiah. Not one person that they've talked to believes that Mendoza is the second best quarterback behind Ty Simpson. He's lying. He's flat out lying right now. So this, and by the way, the last update that I saw on this issue was first time in our relationship history, didn't answer my FaceTime last night. I think he was a little bummed out. This was 21 hours ago from well, I should be posting this pretty soon. Call it 24 hours ago from the time that you're hearing this. Pat McAfee tried to FaceTime him, tried to talk to him. He's not answering him. And I just see this now. Every time I try to end this, I keep seeing more and more. Dan Orlovsky, 49 minutes ago, so at 11:30 today, March 27th, says, we should celebrate being real and honest and not fake. Coach K, couldn't agree more. What a frickin' dork, dude. He also tweeted out yesterday, react, reflect, own it. Life doesn't always go as planned, but God gives us some grace to pause, reflect, and take ownership of our choices. Like, can you be less of a drama queen and just do your job correctly? I'm not picking on what Tim Tebow said. I'm picking on the fact that you're being such a freaking drama queen about this. These were all after the people often forget that kindness is free. In fact, on SportsCenter, he says, I was higher on Jaden Daniels than people were. I was higher on Jackson Dart than people were. In my opinion, Ty Simpson's tape is more impressive. That's all you have to say. That's it. But you go into all this other stuff, and then you freaking lie about your sources. I mean, this is you dug yourself in a massive hole by making a ton of bad decisions. And then you go out and post all these cheesy inspirational quotes. Bro, just stop being stupid. Freaking crazy. All right. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. We'll get into the pro day stuff again tomorrow. This has been spiraling for a while now, and I just wanted to highlight that a little bit because it is like the the fun draft story so far, and I can't have a draft podcast and not talk about it. So anyways, I'm out of here. 40 minutes. That's crazy. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.